let's dive right into this explainer. Today we're exploring a really fascinating educational text that looks at Islamic teachings in a totally different way. Rather than just laying out a disjointed list of historical rules, it presents them as a deeply cohesive, interconnected system. In fact, the curriculum describes this entire system as a complete code of life. And what's so compelling about this material is how it maps out human existence into these expanding circles, starting from the deepest, invisible parts of a person's mind and stretching all the way out to their physical impact on the global environment.
To truly wrap our heads around this framework, we're going to look at what I like to call the ripple effect of these teachings. We'll track these ripples chronologically, moving through 1. Core beliefs, 2. Daily worship and guides, 3. Cultivating moral qualities, 4. Fostering religious harmony, and finally, number 5. Becoming stewards of the natural world.
So, let's start at the very beginning. Section 1. Core beliefs, the center of the ripple.
According to the text, this entire code of life system is anchored by one foundational concept, Iman. Now, Iman is an Arabic word that fundamentally means having faith, but it's actually very specific about what that faith entails. It requires absolute belief in the unseen elements of the religion. We're talking about Almighty Allah, the angels, the Holy Scriptures, the messengers or prophets, Akhirat, which translates to the afterlife, and finally, accepting both the good and the bad of destiny.
When these fundamental aspects of Iman connect, it's not just some theological checklist. The curriculum explains that these beliefs actually act like a deep inner moral compass. By internalizing these specific aspects of faith, the text argues that a believer naturally becomes humble and modest. It essentially wires the brain for gratitude, which actively keeps a person away from doing bad deeds.
Moving outward to our next circle, Section 2, Daily Worship and Guides, Moving into Action.
Transitioning from invisible internal belief into outward physical action brings us to the concept of ibadat. Now, traditionally, you translate this simply as worship, but the source broadens that out quite a bit, defining ibadat basically as obedience to Allah. And it outlines a really fascinating perspective here. Ibadat isn't just praying in a mosque. Doing any activity directed by Allah with the aim of achieving His satisfaction totally counts. That means everyday acts, things like studying, eating, moving around, and even staying clean are literally categorized as acts of worship if you do them with the right intention.
Of course, alongside those everyday acts, there are highly structured forms of ibadah as well. The text highlights the 5 fundamental principles of Islam. It's a clear hierarchy. You've got Iman, that core belief we just talked about, sitting right at the foundation. From there flows Salat, which is daily prayer, Zakat, purifying your wealth through charity, Psalm, fasting from dawn to dusk, and Hajj, the physical and financial pilgrimage to Mecca. But here's the catch. Before any of those structured prayers can happen, physical purity is an absolute must. The text lays out this strict, multi-step cleansing process known as wuzu. You can't just walk straight into prayer. You have to systematically wash your hands, gargle, clean your nose, wash your full face, clean your arms all the way up to the elbows, massage your head, and then finally, wash your feet. The curriculum hammers this home by quoting that purity is the key to Salat, forming a direct, unbreakable link between physical cleanliness and spiritual readiness.
So where do all these daily rituals and life rules come from? They're derived directly from the Holy Quran. The source material is very explicit in describing the Quran as a complete code of life. It's positioned as this ultimate guidebook that provides incredibly detailed instructions on literally everything, from how you respect your parents and manage family relations, to how you uphold justice and maintain a peaceful society.
And to show students that this code isn't just abstract theory, the text grounds us in history through the lives of real guides who lived it out. It traces the life of Prophet Muhammad, born in 570 AD, who originally established this system in a deeply fractured Arabia, and right alongside him is his closest companion and the first Khalifah, Abu Bakr, born shortly after in 573 AD. Their lives, stretching across the late 6th and early 7th centuries, are used throughout the text as the ultimate, practical models of these teachings in real-world action.
Which leads us to the next ripple. Section 3. Cultivating moral qualities, shaping character.
Building on those daily actions, we reach how this routine actually shapes an individual's personal moral character, what the text calls akhlaq. The curriculum doesn't mince words here. It firmly categorizes human behavioral traits into 2 totally distinct buckets. On one side, you have akhlaq-e-hamida. These are the admirable traits everyone is expected to adopt, like compassion, generosity, patriotism, and truthfulness. On the exact opposite side sits akhlaq-e-zamima, the disgraceful traits we have to strictly avoid, things like lying, backbiting, vanity, and malevolence. The text makes it crystal clear adopting the good and shunning the bad isn't just a suggestion, it's required to maintain a functional, peaceful society.
Central to developing that admirable character is empathy. The curriculum features this really interesting tree of empathy exercise, pushing students to actively practice feeling the pain of others. It teaches that empathy isn't just feeling sad for someone from a distance. No, it's the active step of coming forward and actually helping them when they fall into hardship, danger, or financial trouble.
And rather than just listing out these virtues like a dry textbook, the source brings this complete code of life right into focus with some highly specific, amazing historical anecdotes. It tells the story of Prophet Muhammad finding a crying orphan on the day of Eid, taking him into his own home and having his family adopt and feed him. It recounts how Khalifah Abu Bakr secretly visited a blind, helpless woman in Medina every single day to care for her home, never once revealing who he was. And it shares a really powerful story about the Prophet's companions. One of them was given a goat's head for food, but he passed it to a neighbor he thought was hungrier, who then passed it to another neighbor until that single meal had completely circled the neighborhood. Think about that for a second. These stories are meant to powerfully illustrate what active empathy really looks like.
Expanding outward again, Section 4, Fostering Religious Harmony, the Outer Community.
When we zoom out from personal character to the community level, the text explicitly mandates harmony and cooperative behavior with people of diverse, non-Islamic faiths. The curriculum really shines a spotlight on a crucial historical document called the Charter of Medina, or Medina Sanad. This was an actual written contract established by the Prophet among the followers of different religions in Medina. Its entire purpose? To ensure peaceful coexistence. It legally allowed people of different faiths to live freely, practice their own religions without any interruption, and mutually protect each other.
To drive home just how absolute this respect needs to be, the text shares a very striking historical anecdote. It describes a moment when a group of non-Muslims was in the mosque during prayer time, and someone complained. The Prophet responded forcefully with this quote, "The earth does not become impure due to the presence of non-Muslims." It's a massive, powerful command demanding dignity for all human beings, reinforcing that differences in faith do not in any way diminish a person's worth.
And it goes even further. This next quote powerfully reinforces the strict prohibition against religious intolerance. It frames the protection of your non-Muslim neighbors not just as a nice civic duty, but as a direct, severe religious obligation. Look at the phrasing here. To harm a neighbor of another faith is to invite judgment in the afterlife, directly from the Prophet himself.
And that brings us to our last circle, Section 5, Stewards of the Natural World, the final ripple.
So our ripple effect has finally reached its outermost boundary. We've gone from internal faith to daily routine to personal morals to community harmony. Now we reach the individual's profound relationship with nature and the wider environment, and it's honestly fascinating how it bridges ancient religious directives with super-modern environmentalism. The text is surprisingly explicit about ecological protection. It lays out strict rules. Do not throw garbage into rivers or ponds. The carcasses of animals must be properly buried underground to prevent disease and pollution. It even explicitly calls out preventing smoking to combat air pollution. The overarching rule the text provides is simple but massive. Any act that harms the soil, air, water, or the environment is strictly prohibited.
It paints this picture of humans, agriculture, and nature encircled together. The text asserts that we literally cannot survive without a balanced, caring relationship with the biosphere around us. Because Almighty Allah is the creator of all these things, taking care of them is a direct responsibility that has been entrusted to humans. In fact, I love this part. The text elevates environmental stewardship to an actual act of daily worship. It shares this beautiful teaching. If you simply plant a tree, and a bird happens to eat a seed from it years later, that act of feeding the bird is recorded as an eternal act of charity or tzedakah for you. It seamlessly ties the physical, everyday act of planting a tree right back to that spiritual concept of ibadah we discussed at the very beginning of the explainer.
And that really brings us full circle, doesn't it? This text leaves us with a truly fascinating perspective to consider. If we start to view our internal beliefs, our physical cleanliness, our empathy for our neighbors, our tolerance for other faiths, and our care for the environment, not as separate random chores, but as one single, interconnected, complete code of life, well, how might that fundamentally change the way we live on this earth today? It's a compelling lens through which to view human responsibility, and a powerful thought to leave you with. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.